Hi, I'm Paul Duchesne and welcome to Mama Paul's video podcast. Today is Saturday, November the 14th, 2020, the day after Friday the 13th. The way things are going, it might be Friday the 13th for a long time nowadays. Now, I used to open up with a poem on every show, and the original poem I opened up with was a poem that I wrote a long time ago, and I sort of explained it a few shows ago. But I'm going to stop doing the poem thing at the beginning, and I'm not going to read any poem unless I precede it by explaining the poem. It seems to be a bit too much to just sort of come out with the poem and let it hang there without having all the words up there or reading it 2 or 3 times. The last poem I read was a little bit complex, and I got a little feedback from a couple of the listeners out there. Not a big crowd, but I try to listen to people. Anyway, like we said, today is a Saturday, the 14th, and my God, what a 2 weeks it's been. I thought I was going to do a show about a week ago, right after the election is what I sort of planned on. And interestingly, the day before the election, on Monday, November the 2nd, I have a conversation with an acquaintance. I know the guy's a sexist. Maybe he's a racist, I don't know. I know he's a sexist, which is why I don't really like to hang out with him. But I do know him. I'm having a conversation. So we're talking, and I throw out a little tidbit, a sort of friendly tidbit about the election the next day. And he comes back to me with this whole, how the Biden family is getting rich off the Russians, how there's this whole Russian-Biden connection, and don't I know what's going on, and haven't I heard about the computer with all the emails on it? And I'm looking at the guy, and I'm like, oh my God, my head's ready to explode. And I sort of got a little bit upset and probably was pretty reactive. I'm not exactly very nonplussed when it comes to running into people like this. Anyway, I sort of shot back like, don't you read the newspapers? You have any idea what's going on? And he's coming back at me with these ridiculous statements about how the FBI has looked into this whole thing and everybody knows that they're connected with the Russians, and they're dumping all this money into the Biden family, and they're all getting rich and they're taking the election. It's like, where does this stuff come from? So that was on Monday. So I was so upset about this. The next day, so I go look into it, and I sort of had an idea what was going on. I've been following the story for a while, and I go into my little internet source, and I looked at a couple of articles in the New York Times where there were 3 articles in the last couple of weeks just debunking this whole Russian connection with the Biden family, and I literally wound up with a 6-page pull down from a news source debunking this whole thing, talking about how the FBI has debunked it and nobody believes this, and it's basically a Russian story that they're feeding to Rudy Giuliani, and that Rudy Giuliani is now feeding to the rest of this little inner circle of lying people, making this big story. Now, one of the reasons it turns out, one of the interesting analysis on MSNBC the previous week was this story has been floating for a couple of months now, ever since the blind computer repairman fixed Biden's son's computer, and they found all these emails with all this incriminating information. Well, it turns out one of the strategies that they do here, what they do is, let me just grab a little, let me go over the other board for a second. So you've got real emails, and you've got false emails. This board writing is not my email, M-A-I-L. No, not a K there, okay? So we got real, and we've got false emails. Now what happens is they download somebody's computer, they get all the real emails. Then they take the real emails and they integrate a whole bunch of false emails into them. So the end result is you're looking at this, no matter what you're reading in here, you the gullible public assume it's all the real deal. Well, it's not all the real deal. This is the tactic that the Russians have been using for a few years now. This was very specifically one of their prime tactics was to mix the false with the real, and it confuses the whole thing, so you walk away with this, you don't know what the hell's going on. So that's what this whole story is about. It's about them mixing all these ridiculously false statements in with a couple of real statements to make it look like the guy's, culpable. Well, he's not. So the election happens that day. So here we are, November 3rd, and it's a Tuesday. We're watching the election. And as I'm leaving the house to go downtown, I look at the first results. And the first results, and we'll go to the other board there for a second. The first results coming in, we've got 22 million votes for Trump, and we've got 21 million for Biden. 22 million, 21 million. Holy Kazinko. This is about 3 o'clock in the afternoon New York time, maybe 2, 3 in the afternoon New York time, 5, 6 East Coast time. Well, boy, that was really depressing. 44 million people have voted, which is literally, 150 million, 4, 8, 12, about 25%. Maybe a little more than 25%, a little less than 25% of the people have voted. A good solid 20% anyway. And almost half of them have voted for Trump. I just couldn't believe it. I was absolutely flabbergasted. So I went downtown, and it was not an up night for me. It was a little bit on the depressing side. So I come home later in the evening, and I'm watching like everybody's watching. Everybody's watching all the news shows and everything. We're going back and forth. And finally, Biden starts to come up with the numbers, and he's pulling ahead of Trump. The two of them are sort of edging right next to each other, or he's pulling a little bit of ahead, and he's pulling ahead. The Democratic pundits are saying, don't worry about it, he's got this. The Republicans are saying the same thing, don't worry about it, he's got this. Everybody's sort of on the same page that the other guy is going to lose and they're going to win. So about midnight comes along, and it's obvious we're not going to get any answers at all this night. And people are starting to turn off the tube and rest for the night. So I think, okay, that's enough for the night. And the show's end, and I turned off the tube, and I was sitting there, and I said, wow, I just need to watch something to sort of unwind for the next hour or so. So I turned on a Ex Machina, this movie about artificial intelligence. And I had it on for about 30 seconds listening to this really interesting conversation between the human and the android. And I just absolutely couldn't listen to it. And then I put one of my favorite Law and Order Criminal Intent shows on. I think I'll watch those. That's my pablum at the end of the night. I put that on for 2 minutes. I couldn't watch that either. I just absolutely could not focus or watch anything that had any substance to it. So I looked for something a little bit more less thoughtful. So I turned on, I had just recorded 300, the movie about the 300 Spartans who held off the Persian army. And it's a graphic novel kind of a movie, and there's arms flying all over the place and bloodshed and everything like that. But there's a really interesting dialogue going on about the roots of Athenian democracy and what it takes to defend Athenian democracy. So the Spartans are the warriors, and in Athens it's the intellectuals. So the intellectuals and the philosophers and the business people and the merchants are all over there in Athens, and on Sparta is everybody's a soldier. Anybody who's of any age to fight is fighting and becomes a member of the army. So the Spartan army is got people that are in it who are full-time soldiers from the minute their adolescence is over and they start to train. The intellectuals are over on the other side. Well, I'm reading this, and what really struck me was a recent poem I had run into by our new poet laureate Glick about war and men's attachment to war. And I felt sort of vindicated by the end of the evening that I had watched this whole thing through, and at least I came to some intellectual resolve that there's a big conflict going on, and it seemed like it was Biden against Trump, that Trump representing the warring factors, and it's really not the case, but that's the way I was viewing it at 3 in the morning. and Biden representing the intellectual democratic factors. So anyway, I just sort of let that sit. I thought I'd read the poem, and I was going to do that before week's end. Well, as things went along, by Saturday, it was almost like New Year's Eve. I think it was about 4 in the morning. All during the week, I was checking the results on my computer when I'd get up for a little bathroom trip in the middle of the night. So 6 in the morning, I'm checking the results on my computer. And I think it was Thursday, maybe it was Friday, it was Thursday night, maybe Thursday night, Friday morning, that Biden goes over Trump on the electoral vote. I think it was Georgia that he won that night, or they were saying that he was going to win that night. And it was with that, and then if we picked up Nevada with another 7 votes, he'd win. So it was looking better like he was going to win. So there was a little bit of relief in the air. So we sort of held with that for about 24 hours. And then Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of drums and people screaming and hollering. And I was real all annoyed at first. It was like 8:30 in the morning, which I normally don't get till noon. And it was all this noise, and I said, oh my God, what's going on? And then it hit me. Oh, he won. It's finally over. They announced the winning. And it was literally like New Year's Eve all day long. There were literally people dancing in the street downtown. There were people honking horns, and drums were out. And you looked all around the country, and the whole landscape was like that. There were people celebrating. I mean, every park in Manhattan, Times Square, Union Square, Herald Square, Thompson Square, every bloody square that had enough room to hold people was filled with people celebrating, dancing, playing music. And it wasn't just here, it was all across the country. It was in San Francisco, Chicago, Denver, all across the country. People were out celebrating. It literally felt like New Year's Eve. Well, I knew it wasn't New Year's Eve, and I enjoyed the celebration quite a bit myself that day. But I didn't want to get too overly attached to the results that we were in, because it seemed to me that things were not going to necessarily go like we all wanted them to. And sure enough, by Sunday we started to get no concession speech, and by Monday we're starting to get hints that he's not going to concede. And by Tuesday, we've got the conversation is leading back to they're going to attempt a coup. So this goes on for the entire week. That leads us up to where we are today. So as we're going along, Trump is still maintaining, stop the vote, or save the vote in one state and stop the vote in another state. So that's not working. So then they send out their army of lawyers to attempt to overthrow the election, and one after another, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they're throwing these lawsuits out. They're completely frivolous, every one of them. In the middle of this, Giuliani comes out to make a speech at the Four Seasons. Well, it turns out to be not the Four Seasons on Park Avenue that's in the Seagram's building. No. It's some poor Four Seasons garden center in Philadelphia that's bracketed by a porn store, and I believe a crematorium or a mortuary on the other side. And this is typical Giuliani. So this was, I think, like 2 days ago that happened, maybe 3 days ago. So as the week's progressing, we're watching Bill Maher last night, and Bill Maher is the one who's been saying from day one that Trump is not leaving. He's been saying there's no way that Trump is leaving, and Trump at this point seems to be fulfilling that expectation from Bill Maher. Well, the thought of a coup, the word coup, is starting to get more and more ink, so to speak. Now, theoretically, a coup would take place with an outside party overthrowing an inside party, but in this case, the party that's inside is basically attempting to overthrow the entire governmental structure. The concept of democracy, the rule of law, has been seriously in question since day one of this guy's administration. Seriously. And not that back in January, February, March. March is when the Flynn case came up and the Roger Stone case came up, and that's when we saw Bill Barr. Basically defying the rule of law right and left, to the point where we're getting editorials in the Wall Street Journal, not just the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, pretty much talking about the rule of law being destroyed in the country. So this was sort of a 1 or a 2 week sort of story that the rule of law is getting destroyed. Well, as all things Trumpish, when they first come out, you're completely shocked. You can't believe they said that. And you're in a state of shock over these news. And then the next day, there's another story that outflanks the first story. And the next day, there's another story that outflanks that story. By the end of the week, by the end of 2 weeks, the fact that the rule of law is being completely eviscerated right before our eyes becomes a minor, subheading in the stories for the week. Now, this has been the pattern from day one. So here we are, 6 months after the breaking the rule of law, the destruction of the rule of law becomes an issue in America because of everything he's done. And last night I'm watching his latest legal lawyer, who's a fundamentalist Christian. I mean, God knows how they put the word Christian next to these fundamentalists. I don't know what these people believe. These are the people that literally think Biden is a Satan, that the Democratic Party is run by a whole bunch of pedophiles. Although Trump has been involved, as has Bill, with the pedophile of the century, Epstein, and a lot of other Republicans have been involved, and Democrats. A lot of peripheral people have been involved with Epstein. Somehow this QAnon story has centered on the fact that it's the Democrats that are all pedophiles and they're sex slaves and making money and pizza parlors with dungeons underneath them, and it's complete nonsense. Well, as this whole thing is going on, we're listening to, where was it? Hold on a second. Wait a second. Yeah. Let me see who that is. I'll just make a quick one here. We don't want to do this. Yeah, hi, who's calling? Look at the picture we got of you this week. I figured you'd probably call back. It's about time. How did the parade go this week, okay? Well, not this week, but today. I mean, in Washington, you had your whole group was out. You joined the motorcade. I saw that. American flags everywhere, QAnon symbols, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, you think the election was fixed. Well, nobody else thinks the election was fixed. Well, I know you said it was going to be fixed. You said that 2 months ago. And you lost. Oh, I see. You said if you lost, the election was fixed, and you lost. So therefore, the election is fixed. There's no doubt about it. You definitely are going to get an A on your philosophy logic class there. Yeah. Well, if you set up one proposition and you reinforce it with your second proposition, if neither one is right, well, they're both going to equal a. Yeah, I figured that out too. Yeah. So anyway, how have you called the moving people yet? You don't think you're going? How many people do you think you can get to stand at back of you? The Pentagon's not. No, they said they were going to march you right. Oh, I see. That's why you've been firing all those people. Well, the head of the Pentagon is still there, and I know I've seen people. They said no, they're gonna take you out if they have to. Well, I think this is the biggest challenge of your life. It really is. I would focus on the TV show, maybe a new Apprentice kind of a thing. Maybe you could have a new show. You could call it You're Hired. And this way, maybe you could have somebody else sitting there, and you could walk in the room, and they could look at you, and they could say, "Hey, you're just the guy we need. You're hired." And they could put you in the seat, and you could be the head of QAnon. How about that? What do you think? You want to do that or not? No, you'd rather just hang out. Okay, well, listen, you're getting, you're almost as old as me for all I know right now, and we're all in the same boat here. Why don't you just kick back and Osiris Vance? Right. You can't. No, you can't take care of that either, can you? No, that's It's not, you can't pardon that. I know. Even if Pence, I thought maybe you were going to appoint Pence and you'd step down, he becomes president, and then he pardons you. But if he did that, it still leaves you, right, Cyrus Vance can still go after you. New York State can still go after you. So can Manhattan. And you got a load of stuff over there. Okay, listen, I'm going to try to, that's enough with you for the day. Listen, you had your parade today. I like the picture. That's not the picture. I'm going to show one more time on the big screen. I just thought this was, it was okay. There was a picture before this that they had, which I thought was actually even a better picture. They had a picture of you walking out of the White House with your coat on, and your face was sort of cut off. So all we could see was the back of you stepping out. I thought that was a little bit more appropriate, to tell you the truth. I couldn't find it. I looked at the Time. I couldn't find it on the Time website. No. All right. Listen. Why don't you just? Well, maybe in a week or so. I don't know. I mean, you're still around. Obviously, you're here for another 67 more days. And I know there's a rolling joke around the whole Facebook and everybody about, have you ever tried to break up with a narcissist? It's you we're talking about. You're the narcissist. I mean, Jesus, you come on, huh? It's not that big a word. You know what it means. Yeah, I know you know what it means. Yeah, you try to act dumb for your followers, but you're not as stupid as you act sometimes, are you? Yeah, you're a little, the little dumb blonde inside you sort of likes to put that out. Your followers like it. All right, that's enough. I'm going to get you off the phone, and we're going to call it a day. Okay, take care, kiddo. Bye now. Well, he just can't. You think he was going to be out of the news. He didn't make the front of the news stories for almost 4 days. He was completely quiet. He had his Twitter account going, but he didn't do anything, overly dramatic. He sort of gave it a week before he started firing more people and taking some more outrageous activities. But I think we figured out why this is going on. And the reason this is going on, he's raising money. The longer he challenges the election, the longer his... Now, I know it looks like it's almost 50% of the country, but I don't really think out of that 50% that voted for him, I don't think that whole group of people is really that much on his side. I think the original numbers of the 30%, a third, I think there's about a 15% of the what is it now, 120, 75 million. I think about, of them, of that group, the vast majority are anti-democratic party. And by being anti-democratic party, what they essentially are is anti-establishment, which most of progressives, myself included, have been for years. Now, with Trump getting in, he sort of took all the bad stuff that was going on and made it look not so bad. We need to get back to where the establishment that we can deal with on some kind of rational level is there and fix things. Now, I don't know. Maybe he's broken the egg, and the egg is so broken we're not going to put it back together. We're going to have to start from scratch. Now, that's a distinct possibility. Whether the Biden people can come into office and resurrect some sanity or not is questionable. The whole idea behind the lobbyists who have now rebranded themselves with a new name. There's a whole lot of factors in play here, and we've been talking for almost a half hour now. Let me finish it up with what I started to talk about here. The reason we're keeping this going, he's keeping this thing going, is to make money. So as these people are out in the street, trying to overthrow the election and keep him in power, and he keeps questioning the vote here and the vote in Nevada and Georgia, they're going to count by one, they're counting by hand now. The longer he keeps this going, the longer he keeps sending it out to his followers, he keeps raising money. And he's raising money to defend the election, but half of the money is going back to his election fund, not to fight the results of the election, but the election, which means it's money he can pull out and use to pay off his debts. The guy is close to $500 million in debt when he steps out of office. And what a lot of the Pentagon and the military are worried about is that this guy is going to be stealing secrets, which he already has. He has the secrets. He's trying to get more of this stuff so he can sell it and bargain it with hostile governments like Russia or Poland or Hungary in order to make money to reduce his $480 million, I think it is, almost $500 million debt that he's got. And that's probably an underestimation. So as it gets closer and closer to him getting out of office, it gets closer and closer to Cyrus Vance opening up a case against this guy, and it gets closer and closer to him maybe being in handcuffs. Whoa, that would be a party and a half, wouldn't it? Okay, so that's the best I can do for the day here. It's all about the money. It's been about the money with this guy for a long time. And like I said, it's been 2 weeks now. The idea that there's a coup going on, a lot of serious people are using that word coup, and then there's a whole bunch of other serious people that are saying he can't pull it off. Well, this guy has done everything that everybody said he couldn't do a number of times now. So nothing is beyond imagination with this guy. We're going to try to get back to you before Thanksgiving, and as COVID is raging out of control everywhere in the country, small towns, little towns, big towns, you all know it. All these stories go. So we're in the middle of this ridiculousness going on about the election. My God. And I'm not going to talk about that. We'll talk about that next time. So no poems tonight. That was it. And peace, patience, and persistence. And we'll see you next time.